Hello world, this is Lisa Fredrickson, your friend and computer science professor. If you're watching this screencast, you're probably one of my JavaScript students, or maybe you're just watching my JavaScript YouTubes, which is great too. This screencast will help you make sure you're solid on the JavaScript 1 concepts before moving into JavaScript 2. At JCCC, all of our classes are listed under this class search. Our JavaScript 1 class is 2 credit hours and it's called Web 114. And when you search for it, you can click this outline button, which shows you all of the course objectives and then a further breakdown into the competencies within each objective. And this is really what you're buying when you buy a college course. Course objective 1 is to describe the purpose of and relationship between HTML and client and server-side scripting languages. So if I were to give you a table like this with languages in the first column, descriptions of those languages in the second column, could you fill out the third column? When I click the Objective 1 button, I'm filling out the third column, and this is the information I want you to be able to tell me. That HTML is used to describe and mark up digital content on the web page, CSS is used to style and lay out that digital content, and JavaScript then is used to modify both the HTML and the content as well as the styles based on user interaction. I want you to know that client side means that the code runs right in the browser, and that all these other languages, PHP, Java, C#, Ruby, there's others, are server-side languages that actually create a web page on a server. Sometimes they interact with a database and then serve that web page down to the browser. So these languages are called server-side because they get processed or compiled right up at the server. For Objective 2, integrate JavaScript using HTML event attributes, the script element, and external JavaScript files. I want you to know that we can add JavaScript to a web page in 3 different ways. We can use event attributes such as the onClick attribute. I've got a little link here to W3 schools that show an event attribute onClick, and then here's my JavaScript that would be running when that button is clicked. I want you to know the pros and cons of doing it that way. And the pros of using event attributes are that this is a common technique and it's very obvious where the JavaScript is because it's attached directly to that element. But the con, of course, is that the JavaScript is intermixed right there in that opening HTML tag. So it's similar to inline styles, very frowned upon. And even though in JavaScript 1 we see this and we experience it because you're going to see it in life, we try and stay away from that as a professional developer. The second place to put JavaScript is inside a script element on the web page. That usually goes right before the closing body tag. The pro of that is that JavaScript will be reusable on that page. It's very convenient. That's why I like to make my assignments that way, so that you can give me one HTML file with your JavaScript in it. It's very convenient for me to grade. Of course, the con for doing embedded JavaScript, just the same as embedded CSS, is that JavaScript will then not be reusable on other pages. So of course, as our website grows and as we get more professional, we want to pull our JavaScript out into an external JS file and reference it with the SRC attribute. And then our JavaScript can be reusable through many pages throughout the website. The only con is that the usage of where that JavaScript is used on each page is not quite as obvious. For Objective 3, create JavaScript variables, expressions, and operators. I want you to be able to evaluate these expressions and tell me what the variable was equal to if I gave you some starting data. I'm going to click Objective 3, which gives me the answers we're looking for, but let's double check this in the console. If I open up the console and I declare variable x to be equal to 2, variable y to be equal to 5, and variable z to be equal to the string 2, it will come as no surprise if we add x plus y, 5 plus 2, the result will be 7, just as we anticipated. But what happens if we add a number to a string, x plus z? When we try to add a number to a string, JavaScript does a type conversion to make sense of that expression. And in this case, strings cannot be added to anything. So the 2x was converted to a string, and we end up with the string 2. Our variables can be any data type. But when we use another operator such as minus x minus z, this time the z was coerced into a number in order to make sense of this subtraction. So basically every other mathematical operator, minus, multiply, x times z is going to be 4, x divided by z, 2 divided by string 2 is going to be 1. X modulus z is 0 because 2 divided by 2 leaves a remainder of 0. In every other mathematical operation, it's the 2, it's the string that got coerced into a number. It's just with addition, where you can't add a string, the plus sign becomes a concatenation operator. For answer 6, what does answer 6 equal if I have x plus plus? Let's try it. X plus plus returns 2. So answer 6 is still equal to 2. And that might surprise you because, after all, the plus plus increments x by 1. And now x indeed is equal to 3. But the plus plus is not happening until after the assignment of x equals 2 is made to answer 6. Let's set x back to 2x and find out what happens with answer 7. If I plus plus x, I'm returning 3 because x was incremented to 3 before assigning it to answer 7. For answer 8, we have to set x back to 2 and then ask, is x equal to z? And the answer is going to be true, even though x is a number 2 and z is a textual 2, because the equals only looks at the characters. It does not look at the data types. But x equal z also compares the data types, and that's going to return false. Objective 4 is also fundamental to your JavaScript 1 knowledge. If I were to ask you to create a function in the event listener, a very simple one, it might go like this. I want you to create a function that prompts the user for their name and puts their name on the web page. And so when I click Objective 4, I'm prompting for my name, and I'm sticking it there in this paragraph. And so here is the code that was necessary to do that. I want you to be able to write this code. This is obviously just HTML, a paragraph with an ID, name para, and a button with an ID, btn. And here's my function. I called it my name, and it declares 2 variables, the name para, which just actually goes up here and gets this paragraph, the name entry, which is going to be equal to the value of my window prompt. And yes, window dot is optional, but I like to put the full syntax in there to be more clear in JavaScript 1. And then the side effect of this function is that my name para text content property is going to be equal to name entry. So whatever I put into this name is going to get stuck in that paragraph. Finally, I've declared another variable btn, which points to my button, and I've added an event listener so that when the button's clicked, the my name function runs. So I want you to be able to do that. That's a really core and important part of JavaScript 1. Objectives 5 and 6 go together because when we write JavaScript to store and use data in arrays, we often want to loop over every item in the array to do something to it. Objective 6 is to write JavaScript to control program flow. So my example for this combines these two objectives. I found a list of funny things that mom says and what she really means, and I put them in an array. If she says maybe, she means probably not. If she says we will see, she probably means never. If she says let's play the quiet game, she really means stop talking, my ears are bleeding. So I put these sayings in 2 arrays, what mom says array and what mom means array. They have the same number of items, and I just separated them so they would be more readable. I've got a variable j and set it to 0 and a number of sayings to the length of one of the arrays. And then here's my for loop. We're going from item 0 through less than number of sayings and incrementing by 1. And here's where the real heavy lifting happens. I'm declaring a variable says, and I'm setting it equal to document.getElementById says plus whatever number I'm on, 0, 1, 2, 3, and I'm setting the text content of whatever that variable is to the item in the array, what mom says, item 0, and also the variable means with what mom means, item 0. Back up in my HTML, when we get these elements by ID, I've got that set up already with 0 through 12 paragraphs of what she says and what she means. Now, if you're in JavaScript 2 class, I would have you create these elements on the fly with JavaScript. And if you can do that now in JavaScript 1, all the better. But I've already got these paragraphs set up. I'm simply going to loop through the array and stick what she says into the paragraph that corresponds with that item in the array. And here we go. Objective 6. If she says, one day you'll thank me, she really means, hopefully you'll forget this ever happened. If she says, do you think it's a good idea? She really means that's the worst idea ever. I want you to be able to set up an array, understand that the array index starts at 0, and then somehow loop through that array and do something with each item in the array. For our final two objectives, we debug JavaScript and we identify some JavaScript security issues. These are both conceptual. On objective 7, here are some of the activities that you can do that help you write clean JavaScript and debug errors. For objective 8, identify JavaScript security issues. What are 2 common JavaScript security issues and how do you prevent them? Well, the 2 that I want you to know about in general are Xss Cross-Site Scripting. That's where an attacker actually injects JavaScript onto a web page and then you run it from your browser. And they're usually trying to do something nasty like read information out of your cookies or log your keystrokes or change the content on the web page in a phishing type of expedition to get you to click or believe something is real when it's actually fake. But for JavaScript 1, I really don't need you to know a lot about the solutions to this, but just mostly I want you to be aware that Xss Cross-Site Scripting is probably the #1 JavaScript security issue. Of course, there's always code theft as well. It's another type of security problem where a thief reveals and then steals your code. And there are tools available to minify and obfuscate your code. That means to minimize it, take out all the white space, and minimize the variable names, and also obfuscate your code. If you go to a site such as Google and look at the source, it looks like it's just junk because it's been minified and obfuscated. And then at JCCC, I do want you to use the index.html file in all your folders to protect your work. So for example, here, if you go to my website, students.jccc.edu/LisaLFry, to look for all my YouTubes, you will not see a directory listing because this is the index page. So that just protects you from other students perhaps pawing around in your work. So keep an index file at least at your root, and hopefully in every folder you will better protect your work at JCCC. Thank you.